Hello, everybody, and welcome to the channel. I'm Pastor Siri. I'm a Lutheran pastor, but I'm also a spiritual seeker. And today I want to talk about something that many Christians may be a little uncomfortable talking about, mostly because we really don't know much about it. And I'm going to talk about tarot and maybe how Christians, or really anybody, can look at it. So take a listen. So first thing I want to start out by saying is that if you happen to have grown up in a Christian home, my guess is you probably have not heard much about tarot, and what you have heard about a tarot deck has been negative. And this is because Christians do not often spend the time to learn about things that are outside of their tradition. And we've been taught to fear and judge and automatically demean and demonize things that we don't understand. We have sometimes this belief that if it came from our tradition and the Bible, therefore it's good, and anything outside of that, it must be bad. You add on to that sort of the occultish, witchy aspect of it, and we naturally think of the devil and demons and like evil curses and stuff like that. And it doesn't help that in the public, with what we might see on TV shows or movies, a lot of people who might use tarot or crystals or anything like that are often portrayed in a very scary way. And there's a few cards that seem to be infamous in tarot that people think often predict death or predict illness or things like that. So I want to talk about first what tarot is, briefly explain the suits and the major arcana, and then I want to invite you to think about how you might use it, if you want, in your own spiritual practice. So first of all, the tarot deck has 21 of what we call the major arcana. And these are cards that start with the Fool. Every deck, the Fool is a young, youthful, optimistic person who looks like they're going to step off a cliff and they don't even know it. But this particular deck, which is my favorite, it's called the Light Seer's deck, just notice there's such trust. She's falling almost like a trust fall, and what she's falling into looks like this beautiful web of being. So at the very beginning of the entire deck, you have somebody who, with great trust and innocence, is falling into a journey that meets many characters along the way. Throughout the major arcana, basically, there's different skills that are embodied, and you could see each of the cards as representative of a person that they will meet to learn from, a teacher or a guide or a life experience, but it could also be what they're discovering within themselves, really both and what they're embodying. I'm going to show you some of my favorite cards from the major arcana. I love this one, Strength. So if you notice this woman, half of her is a lion, and she has a heart necklace on, and sitting on her lap is a lamb. And to me, this is such a beautiful card talking about what true strength is. It is someone who has the capacity to be fierce and gentle. And how do you know which to be? It's your heart. Your heart tells you the difference. I also really love, this is the very next card, number 9. It's the Hermit. And the reason I love this card so much, I don't know if this helps see it or not. I see people do it all the time online. I'm like, oh, this must be what you do. The Hermit is this beautiful card. You see how she's gone away by herself in meditation. And because of that time alone, she's allowing her inner light to really glow. So she's connecting with some deep source within her. And sometimes that's what we need. Then we also have another one of my favorite, it's actually very early on in the arcana, is the Magician. And one of the reasons why I love this card is because of this figure 8 that you see here, as well as the infinity sign on the person's hood. And this is a beautiful symbolism of discovering your co-creation powers with spirit and with earth. That we as human beings are really a bridge between heaven and earth, and learning how to use your own creative power, your own will, your own power to do magic, you might call it, or simply just participating in the world and knowing what you can and cannot do. And then all of these end with the wheel. And so this is the end of the major arcana, the 21 cards. And here you have somebody who's riding this beautiful wheel. It's like they've accomplished, ooh, do you see that? The web of being that the fool fell into, they now have embodied that. I've actually never noticed that before. They are living in that full power and trust, having embodied all of the lessons. But because it's a wheel, it turns and it goes back to the beginning. So this can be symbolic, this journey through the major arcana can be symbolic of your life from the time you're a baby to the time you die. It could be symbolic of a stage of your life. It could be childhood, adulthood, older age, or even much shorter. So there's so many different ways that we can look at our life journey. Now, I do want to talk about a couple of the harder cards that show up in the major arcana. And one of them is the devil. Dun, 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 dun. First of all, I love how in this particular deck, the artist does not go with the traditional like red guy with the horns, everything, but decides to go with a very attractive person, if I do say so myself. And notice at the bottom here, you have a figure that is kind of in torment and being held, is curling up, like there's strings that this figure has. And what I think is so interesting about this is it portrays not necessarily a literal devil figure, but rather that some of the very things that enslave us and keep us trapped within ourself with fear, shame, guilt, worthlessness, addiction, whatever it is, it can feel very enticing at first. And so this is a deeply metaphorical card. What is it that's holding you back, holding you down, keeping you locked within yourself? So it's a beautiful question for self-inquiry. Another one that's very famous is the Tower. It represents when you have not been paying attention, and you've not been paying attention again and again. Like you're getting signs from God, you're getting words from spirit, and you're not paying attention. You may be having intuitions and feelings within yourself, like I really should do that, but you're not listening, usually because of fear. There's a lot that we don't do because of fear. And so with that card, that's saying, you haven't been paying attention to something really important, and it will feel then like everything will crash down. This is sort of the I hit rock bottom phase. It's not a punishment. It's not that anyone's going to curse you. It's nothing like that. It's literally just what happens when we refuse to course correct down a path that's not good for us or other people. Eventually, we're going to hit a wall. And so the Tower can just be a warning to us of like, what messages have you not been paying attention to? And then there's another card. This is a beautiful one. This is Death and Rebirth. So there's a death card in every deck. But it's, again, not scary, and it does not mean your literal death is going to occur. In this particular case, you can see this cloaked figure that through on the other side is a whole other universe. And that death and rebirth is a deeply symbolic metaphor that is in every spirituality, especially in Christianity, that what happens after a death? A resurrection. Right? And so if something feels like a Good Friday, if something feels like death to you, do not be afraid, because something good and maybe better and more beautiful is going to come out. So it can be a beautiful card if you're going through grief, if something's ending in your life, you're leaving a job, a relationship has ended. When you pull that card, to me, it's very hopeful in saying that there's something beautiful that can come on the other side. Now, briefly, there are 4 suits. There's the swords, the wands, cups, and pentacles. And these represent the 4 parts of us as humans that we experience on earth and need to understand. So we start with swords, and swords represents air, it represents communication and thoughts. And so this actually, swords tends to be, I think, the hardest cards, meaning most of the cards are representative of things that are kind of difficult, because most of our suffering comes from here. It's our thoughts that bring us suffering. And one of the cards that really demonstrates that, I think, in a powerful way is this one here, the 9 of Swords, sometimes called the Nightmare card. So here she is with a pillow, and she's got her hands covered over her face. And there's these like black crows that seem to be harassing her. And yet there's a white like dove or something right here on the other side. So in some ways it's saying, look, you might feel like you're lost in a nightmare, but just look up, just look up. And the end of the swords, through all of the journey of learning to understand and master your thoughts, the king and queen of swords are standing on mountains, and they're surveying everything with this calm that they have been able to master their thoughts in a way. They're cool and they're collected, and they see the big picture. And then we have wands, and wands represents fire energy, and it represents our will and our work. One of my favorite cards in wands is this one. And here you have somebody who has worked hard and achieved some good success and is celebrating that and enjoying that. This is a beautiful card to pull because it means, look, you're not there yet, but this is a great time to pause and see what you've accomplished and the good work you've done, and that people are talking about you. They're giving you accolades. They're seeing your value, and you're allowed to feel proud. You're allowed to share your accomplishments. You're allowed to do that. And so with wands, where you end up is you end up with a king and queen of wands who are very powerful in their being. They're very sure of their ability and what they can do. And they're very courageous. They're not ones who are going to be afraid to try something new, to take risks. They're very assured of who they are. So far we have the swords, in which you become a master of your thoughts, and the wands, you become a master of your will. And then next you have cups, and cups represents the water element, and that is emotion and intuition and feeling. And this one too really asks us to learn. There are times in our life, like this is such a powerful card, where you put a lot of emotional investment in something. You have your dreams, you have your desires, you have your love, and there's times in which you might have to walk away from that to something better. So learning how to dive deep into your emotions and understand them rather than letting them rule you, you learn to work with them, and you learn to have a beautiful relationship with them. And the king and queen of cups are sitting in the water, but they're very cool and calm. They're in harmony with the insides of themselves. And then finally, we have pentacles. And pentacles has always been something that Christians have completely misunderstood. We see a pentacle and we immediately think of witchcraft and the devil, which it's never meant, ever. So pentacles is simply a symbol for the earth energy. And it can be all sorts of things. It can actually mean the earth and our relationship with trees and animals and water. It can mean our bodies and things like that. But a lot of times it also can mean our work and our money and what we're producing that's tangible on the earth. So here's a beautiful card in the Pentacles suit, in which this person has planted seeds of hard work and of maybe even investment. And they're slowly seeing this growth. They're putting their attention and their energy and their heart's desire, and they're slowly seeing growth. So this card might be, you've put a lot of time and energy into something, but you're not maybe seeing it completely at its fullness, but don't worry. That good attention that you're giving, you will see the fruits of your labor. You will see a return on your investment in whatever that means. And the King of Queen of Pentacles are just abundantly connected to earth, at home with their bodies, and really filled with that sense of abundance and gratitude and generosity with this earth. And so each of the kings and queens in the 4 suits look a little different. It's really kind of cool to lay them next to each other and see how differently they are embodied in what they've mastered. And yet, when you put all of these together, when you put the whole deck of cards together, it represents the challenges, the successes, the opportunities, and beautiful truths of just life. So all this to say that you do not have to be afraid of a tarot deck if you're going to have a tarot reading or you want to buy a deck, because here's one thing you could do. So here's my whole deck. And this is kind of what I do in the morning, is I just shuffle through the cards. And while I'm shuffling, I speak to my guides, or you could talk to God or Jesus or your grandma who passed on the other side if she was your favorite. And you can just say, what do I need to know today? What do I need to know today? Or you could ask a more specific question, just not yes or no, because how would you glean a yes or no from this? It doesn't work. And then when you're done, you can pull 1 card. I pull 2 cards, and then you just study it. Oh, look, I got strength. And then you just study it and you let your intuition talk. I journal about what strength means and what's grabbing my attention in this card. And you allow for the ones that you called in to teach you something about yourself and what you need for the day and what you might not have explored about yourself. You always listen to your intuition, meaning just because you pull up a certain card that's supposed to always mean this doesn't necessarily mean that it means that day. So a lot of decks do come with books, and you can just start by shuffling and drawing a card a day, and then reading what that artist and the creator of the deck says about that, which is beautiful wisdom. So I hope this was helpful just for your own awareness. Like I said, many times if it doesn't come from our little Christian bubble, we have heard really negative, ignorant comments that honestly come from people who don't know what they're talking about. So I myself was nervous a little bit when I started with tarot and got my first tarot reading. And I very quickly realized, like so many things, there was nothing to be afraid of. There was nothing to be afraid of. And so I share that with you, and I encourage you to be curious and open-minded, and always use your own intuition about what it is that and always use your own intuition. That's what I have for you today. If you found this video useful, I encourage you to like, comment, subscribe, share it, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.